My guest today on the podcast is Sam Cordry. She is the owner of Cordry Creative, a marketing agency that offers amazing services to really help you connect with your clients. We had a great conversation about shifting from a full time job into creating your own little place in the world, your own business as an entrepreneur, the challenges that comes with that. We also talked about some strategies, how to use storytelling in your business, how to show up authentically, and really some of the common mistakes that she sees as she helps clients through their brand and marketing identity. So I hope you guys enjoy this one. Lots of great tips here for you again this week. As always, let's dive in. Welcome to the Accidental CEO podcast, where we bridge the gap between the creativity you love and the CEO mindset you need. I'm your host, Nata Salvatori, wedding photographer and business educator. Find full show notes and resources at accidentalceopod.com. Let's get into today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Accidental CEO podcast. I'm your host, Nata Salvatori, and today I have Sam Cordry with me. Sam is the owner and founder of Cordry Creative, a Midwest-based marketing agency dedicated to being strategic and creative with their partners, especially small business and mid-sized business. So welcome, Sam.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
Well, thank you for joining me. Tell them a little bit more about what you do, what kind of services you offer, and then we're going to learn more about your journey after that.
So, I started Cordry Creative, full service marketing agency, in December of 2022. And when I founded the agency, really leaning on my background, I've been very fortunate throughout my career to gain experience just across the marketing and communication spectrum, public relations, social media, kind of all the things. And so I was able to bring all of that together and really serve clients in a very intentional way. Really, the premise of what I do is to be a partner and to really understand who my clients are, who they serve, what their goals are, kind of what they're looking for. And then we work together to build an intentional strategy, kind of pulling from all the tactics under the marketing communications umbrella to put together something that just brings all of that together and that feels right. And then we execute from there.
Tell us a little bit about how you got there, because I know there was a life before your agency. So tell us a story about that moment that kind of took you through this journey.
Yes. So I've been a lifelong writer. Words have always been my thing. I wrote a book when I was in second grade for a competition, and that kind of started just my lifelong love of writing. And writing has just opened doors for me throughout my career. It's what's granted me the opportunity to be exposed to different areas of marketing and communications. And it's something that I've always fallen back on. And I'm a part of a Facebook group, and someone had posted that they were looking for a freelance writer for a real estate association. And I was like, I could do this. And the seed was already planted of, wanting to venture out onto my own. I was starting to put the pieces together of what that kind of looked like. And again, writing is just something I'm very comfortable with. I've got a lot of experience. And so that became my first client, my first, entrepreneurial venture was freelance writing for this real estate association. And from there, I was like, you know what? I'm doing this. And I started the business entity that's Cordry Creative. I created a Cordry Creative email, and I started to put the pieces together. And shortly after that, just someone in my professional network had reached out looking for a freelance writer or if I knew of anyone. And I was like, well, it's funny that you ask because I'm starting to do this. And so that became my second client. And things like that just very organically started to happen. And then it was probably 5 or 6 months after I had started the LLC, that is the business, that I was connecting with another person in my network who referred me to a client who was looking for writing and a little bit more marketing. The contract that I secured with them was the catalyst to me being able to quit my full-time job and really launch into Cordry Creative. So at that point, and that was like I said, 6, 7 months after starting the business and starting this venture. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? What is this business really going to be? And writing again, it's always been the foundation of everything that I've done. But I got to this point of, I don't know that freelance writing is quite the direction that I wanted to take the agency exclusively. I really enjoy being hands-on. I really enjoy the partnership piece. I really enjoy the strategy piece. And in my experience, freelance writing just wasn't quite affording me that just gratification that I was looking for of really serving my clients. So then things evolved from there to what it is today of being the agency. But it all started with writing. So
Very cool. What was your current job at that time, when you were responding to these first few inquiries? As a
yeah, yep, I was a marketing manager. So had a full-time job doing strategy, guiding, communications, doing all of that, and then coming home at night and doing freelance blogs for a real estate website on the side and then just growing it from there. So
What made you even look for something else to do on top of already having a full-time job?
that is a great question because I was definitely busy. Again, I think I've always been entrepreneurial. And a little background story too. I love real estate. And I had a very short stint as a real estate agent shortly after I graduated from college. The situation and the circumstances just weren't right to continue that. So I got back into corporate marketing. But when I saw that post, it combined two things that I'm good at and that I'm passionate about with writing and with real estate. And for me, I've always been an intuitive person. I've always been very in tune with my gut feeling and just what feels right, and just not to get too woo woo, but with the universe. And I really believe that the universe provides. And there was just something about seeing that post and just everything that I had going on in my life and my background and my interests, that I just really felt like the universe was looking out for me and that this was a path that I was destined to go down. And this was the catalyst to help me do that.
How was the reaction of, like, family, friends, and everybody else around you when you decided, "I'm gonna leave this safe job and try to start this own thing"?
My husband and my immediate family were all very supportive. They've always known I've always been this way. I've always got ideas. I'm always creative. I did the real estate thing for a little while. So when this came about and I started talking about it and thinking about it, they were very supportive. And I think because the real estate opportunity didn't quite pan out the way that I thought that it would, I was very shy to talk about it publicly, talk about Cordry Creative publicly with people outside of my immediate family. So, really, for the first probably year, like it was after I quit my corporate job, was when I finally started telling people about it. And I didn't really officially announce it until over a year later. So, I just wanted to make sure that the pieces were in place, that things were sustainable. I really wanted to do it my way. And I just was very sensitive about how I shared that. And of course, once everyone found out, they were very supportive, and the response has been great. But it was something that was just very special to me and very intentional to me, and I really just wanted to do it the right way. So it took me a while to share it, but once I did, the response was very positive.
Yeah, so I wanna dive into that a little bit if you don't mind. Do you think that part of it was there was any fear of, like, failure and judgment in there, or was it more like you just trying to be protective of this idea? Just let's dig into that a little bit.
I think it was both. I mean, the fear of failure is very real, but I also knew that if I had to jump back into corporate life and figure that out, I could. So I think that was part of it. But I also just really felt like just a deeper feeling that this was my opportunity to really build something meaningful and do it my way. And build not just a business that I love and that serves people and has a tremendous impact on people and their businesses, but that fuels the life that I have and the life that I want to have. And so I think I was very protective over just what that looked like, and how I shared that, and all of those things too in the beginning of just really wanting to make sure I had a solid framework and that the foundation was really set before I shouted it from the rooftops. So
Yeah, what was that moment that made you feel like, "Okay, I'm ready to share with the world now that this is mine and this is here to stay"?
I actually waited until the official 1 year anniversary of starting the LLC to announce it. And it just felt timely because I had a year under my belt of doing it on the side, building it up, quitting my full-time job, working with clients exclusively, all the things that come with being a business owner, all the highs and lows of that first year. I had that under my belt. And so I felt like, not that I made it, because there's always work to be had, and, if starting a business was easy, everyone would do it, but I just felt like I was very proud of that milestone, that I had done that, and that I had done it all on my own, and so it just felt like a very timely opportunity to share it.
Since you were not advertising and talking into the world about your business, how were you finding clients at that time for that first year?
It was all my network. I'm very grateful that I have a pretty robust network of just professional contacts and friends and other entrepreneurs who are doing incredible things. And in sharing with them, what I was doing, either they had a need or they knew someone who had a need. And it just very organically grew that way. And still to this day, the majority of my business comes from my network and people that I know, which is an incredible compliment to me and something I'm very grateful for.
So even within the evolution of Cordly Creative, there has been some change already, going from just the freelance writing to now becoming a little bit more intentional with the kind of work that you do. So tell me, just talk through that journey of how did you realize that you wanted to kind of change directions a little bit and be a little bit more specific with the work that you provide.
Yeah. So when I was first working with clients in a freelance capacity, I had started just a signature service, I guess, called the Foundation Framework, that I conceptualized and I still serve clients with. And the premise of that is to help businesses really define their story, who they are, who they serve, what their impact is, and what makes them unique. And we work together through the exercise of questions and just discussions to really get to the heart of their story and then define it in a way that they can use wherever they show up. And I started doing that for people, and the confidence and the clarity that it gave people was just incredible to see. And I was like, okay, I'm onto something here. And then once these clients had their story and felt confident in speaking about themselves and what they did, then they needed marketing. So it was a natural evolution to becoming the agency. And as I mentioned earlier, being a partner is so incredibly important to me, and building intentional strategies is incredibly important to me. And in the beginning, I found myself really struggling of, what do I want this agency to be? What do I want to do? How do I want to do it? And it was finally talking to a friend, and she was like, you don't have to pigeonhole yourself. If there's clients that need something and you've got the experience to do it, you should do it. And it just was an obvious statement, but it just was a light bulb moment for me, where it almost gave me the permission to be like, okay, I can do everything. And it fit very well into, I want to be a partner. I want to build intentional strategies. Let's not limit ourselves to what we want to do. If there's something that makes sense for your business, let's figure out a way to do it. And I've been very successful doing that. And it just feels right too.
You talked about emphasizing the power of showing up authentically in your business. Can you share a little bit about maybe some strategies that you use with your clients, and maybe how that has impact one of your clients' businesses, if you have a good example to share with us?
I think consistency is the biggest thing for me. And, there's best practices on the social platforms and all the things of how often you should be posting and what you should be sharing. And ultimately, what I tell my clients is, I mean, yes, there's these best practices and they're there for a reason, but let's come up with a strategy that's sustainable to you and that you can be consistent. And when you can consistently share your story, when I think about a story, it doesn't start and stop. It's consistent. And so that's kind of the way that I describe it, is the best way to continue to share your story, to build an audience, to attract the right opportunities to you, to enjoy what you're building to, is to be consistent and to engage in tactics that align with you. I think as entrepreneurs, it's very easy to feel like you need to do all the things and show up on all the platforms. And ultimately, it's not sustainable and it doesn't always feel natural. And when there's that disconnect between you showing up authentically versus doing something because you feel like you have to check the box, people feel that. And when they feel that, it's just hard to attract the right people to you when you're forcing it.
Have you ever worked with somebody that really struggles with verbalizing their vision and their mission and what they want for their business? How do you help those clients?
Yes, I feel like a lot of people struggle with. But, I mean, that's what I'm here for, and, I mean, people struggle to talk about themselves, and that's probably the number one question that I get from my clients is, "How do I talk about myself? How do I talk about what I do without coming off as phony?" And so what we start with is, how do you describe yourself? Like, if you were talking about what you do and who you are, like, how do you describe yourself? And then we get into talking about their hobbies and, picking words to describe themselves and all sorts of just kind of off the wall questions and just to get the ideas flowing, to just really understand who they are and ultimately from that exercise, which has become the foundation framework, we're able to just really define who they are in an intentional way and come up with what I call brand pillars, content pillars. I think there's lots of words and descriptions for it, but come up with a few different pillars of what we want to talk about when it comes to who you are and what you feel comfortable sharing and what feels right and what feels natural to share. And let's build a plan around that so we're not having to reinvent the wheel every time. So I think that aids with the authenticity piece, it aids in the consistency piece, and just the overall strategy long term.
When you're working with creative entrepreneurs, what do you feel like is the most common sticking point? Like where they get stuck and really can have to work hard to kind of overcome to be able to present a clear brand and have a good marketing plan?
I think it's describing what they do. I think we are all victim to this. We all live in our own worlds, and I think we all feel like people are paying attention to us and what we do more than they actually are. I come across a lot where people are describing what they do and it's either confusing or there's a piece missing or just doesn't quite make sense. And so I think that's the biggest part of like, let's really define in super layman's terms what it is that you do. Because if I don't understand what you do, or I've got questions about what you do, someone else does too. So let's get to the heart of that and let's define it in a way that's clearer.
Today's episode is sponsored by Accidental CEO. Are you tired of empty calendars or worse, feeling like your revenue is capped? I've been there. The truth is, it's insanely frustrating to feel like you're doing everything the experts recommend but never seeing real results for yourself. Stop trying to follow someone else's path. Your business superpowers are completely unique from every other entrepreneur in your area. Let me help you find the key to unlock your wildly profitable business strategy. I focus on one-on-one business and mindset coaching because I truly believe you deserve individualized strategies for your unique business. It's time to get your business thriving. Check out my website for more information at accidentalceo.co. That's accidentalceo.co. Yeah, I feel like I find that with my clients a lot when we're coaching, entrepreneurs, it's hard to kind of detach yourself and self-worth from the work that you do, which is what creates such a difficulty to really define that because people are so attached to their work as a person that sometimes they have a hard time describing that for the same reason you have a hard time describing yourself. So that first step of kind of detaching your self-worth and self-value from your work, not that you don't love it, not that you're not passionate about it, it's just that's something you produce. That's not you as a human being. So if you take that first step, then the next step of really defining that becomes a little bit easier.
Exactly. And that's where I think too, having an unbiased third party to ask you these questions and to point out these blind spots that maybe you have and to ask you questions that maybe you haven't thought of is incredibly helpful.
As a CEO, how do you balance that need to go like full force when you taking the time to check in with yourself and taking a little break and a breather too? Have you been able to kind of find a good balance for those two?
Some days yes, some days no. I think that's probably all entrepreneurs. For me, it's sticking to my routine. I am Following my routine is incredibly important, and it starts the night before. It starts with eating a good dinner and getting a good night's rest and waking up and getting my workout in. And even though I work remote, I know a lot of entrepreneurs work remote. most of my clients are remote, it's still for me, it's very important to put on normal clothes and clean myself up. And that just really helps me get into work mode. And, what I've found is when I'm true to my routines and I'm consistent in that, I show up more prepared, more present, more focused, more creative, just more mentally sharp. And that allows me then when I sit down at my computer for the day to just really be focused on what I'm doing and be productive so that when I sign off for the day, I can close my laptop and just have the peace of mind. And what I've found is I work really hard, but I also get burnt out quickly. And when I can just really focus during the day, I don't take a lot of breaks during the day. I sit down and I work and I do my thing. And that just works for me. But if I am getting too into early mornings or late nights or weekends, and obviously there's a time and a place where you might have to do those things, but it's a short term sacrifice for the longer term gain. But when I find that I'm in that space for too long, I get burnt out very quickly. So being committed to what I've got going on during the day and being organized and being on top of what I've got going on has been incredibly helpful for me. And I think too, the other thing that I'll add is just the perspective of why I'm doing what I'm doing in the first place. It is to create this life that I want that has flexibility and it allows me to do the work that I love, but also the balance that I want and all of the things. And, when I feel like I've got a million things to do and I'm bouncing from one thing to the next and just feel like the wheels are spinning, but there's not much going on, I often just have to remind myself to stop, reprioritize. Does this need to get done now? What is the most important thing that I need to be focusing on? And just reframe from there. So,
Yeah, I think that most people thrive with having a good structure to follow, and then keeping your goals right in front of your eyes, so you can awfully use that to make decisions on what, like you said, what needs to be done now, what do I need to put my effort into, and what can wait until tomorrow or next week, so you don't feel that burnout sneaking in.
exactly. It happens.
Yes. Let's give the listener some strategies on how to introduce storytelling into their marketing strategies. We hear that often. We know that's a good thing. Where should they be looking into actually applying storytelling techniques or that concept of storytelling into their business?
I think that storytelling has a place in all parts of your business. From obviously, I work a lot in marketing, so definitely there. And from an external perspective, it helps attract the right clients and opportunities. It helps people gain clarity into how you can serve them. It helps align expectations if the way that you show up externally in your marketing efforts aligns with what people get when they actually connect with you. It aligns that expectation. It turns clients into fans. Again, it makes business enjoyable because it feels authentic to who you are and what you do. And internally, I think it helps bring your teams closer. It helps allows you to be vulnerable and it gives your people the space to do the same. I think whether you're talking internally or externally, there's a place for your story to be shared.
Yeah. Besides putting things on their website, what other places, like logistically, should people be thinking about using storytelling?
I think in sales materials, if you're interfacing with clients and you're getting your business that way, I think incorporating your story into it's one pagers or presentations or whatever that looks like, even beyond the physical things, it's in the way that you talk about yourself too, in the way that you present yourself. Like you are uniquely you, and there's only one you in your business, and the way that you crafted your business and the service that you provide and the way that you provide it is only the way that you can do that. So own that. There's a lot of power in that. There's a lot of people that are looking for what you specifically do. So I think it's also in the way that you carry yourself. Social media is another obvious place. Email marketing. I love my email list. I nurture that thing. And I really feel like that's a place for me where I can really be vulnerable and I can share my story and I can talk about the things that are on my heart or the things that are going on. So I think all of those places it's offers a great opportunity to share your story or pieces of your story in whatever way makes sense.
How do people know? How could they identify when they're not connecting well with their ideal client? Is there some signs that maybe things are not vibing over there, they're not connecting?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I am a big believer in listening to your gut and just getting quiet with yourself and being in tune with yourself. And that's the way that I make a lot of my decisions. And that gut feeling is what really guides me in my day to day. And when things feel right, it's a firm feeling. It's a solid yes. It just feels like you're on the right path. There's validation there. And for me, when things maybe feel off or not quite right, it's usually this nagging feeling. It just kind of drug out. Things are kind of clunky. Like the dots are just not being connected. And what I found is that every time that I ignore that feeling that something is off, it always comes back around and I always end up having to face it at some point. And, when you're working with clients or interfacing with new clients or whatever that looks like, listen to that and be aware of that and be honest with yourself. And I think as entrepreneurs and especially entrepreneurs that are starting out in their business, it can feel like you have to say yes to everything and just take on whatever opportunities come your way. And while there's some truth to that, I think you also have to put it into the perspective of your long term goals. Is this client someone that you can appropriately serve in the long term? How is that going to impact the rest of your business? How is that going to impact your quality of life? Like these are all very real factors that you have to consider. And ultimately, I think just listening to your gut, you know if something is right, you know if something is off. It's just whether you choose to listen to it or not.
Have you found, maybe looking at data from the clients that you've worked with, things that are big no-nos when it comes to like marketing or copy, just and kind of strategies where you're trying to connect with people, maybe on the website or email platforms, like things that you're like, I know this thing does not work. Like we should all stop doing this.
Probably not any like abstract things necessarily, but user experience is big. How do people physically interact with your website, with your social pages, with your email? What does that look like? What is that experience like? I think that's a big thing. And again, coming from the girl who loves writing and went to school for journalism, typos, read your copy. The amount of typos that I see in just my everyday life when I'm interacting with businesses is just mind-blowing. Like, just give it a proofread. And one of my favorite tricks for good copy is to write it, put it away for a couple hours, for a day, for a couple days, and then come back and look at it with fresh eyes. And you'd be amazed at just how much self-editing that you can do after just stepping away for a little bit. So I think user experience, and I think the typo thing goes into the user experience of, does this actually make sense? Is this grammatically correct? Is this spelled correct? Like that little, just that little detail goes a long way.
Do you think there's a place for grammatically incorrect sentences and more casual verbiage on marketing materials, if that's something that really a person identifies with, if that will keep them authentic to their brand?
Yeah, I mean, there's exceptions to every rule, and yes, and I even break them myself. I'm not perfect. Yes, I think if you've coined a phrase, or there's words that you use, or there's a way that you say things that aren't grammatically correct or that aren't spelled correct, of course, use those. Use what's authentic to you. I think just overall, if things like do not make sense or are blatantly spelled wrong or you're using the wrong version of there or something like that, clean it up, please.
So, as somebody who started their own business, what advice would you give to somebody who is thinking about starting out? They want to turn that passion into a thriving business. What is your number one advice for them?
I think the first thing, I've got a couple things. The first thing that I would say, which I know a lot of people say, but I wholeheartedly believe it, is to just start. Things do not have to be perfect. I mean, you're talking to the marketer who didn't even tell anyone she had a marketing business for like a year. So, and I was okay. I think, we put a lot more emphasis ourselves on just trying to have things perfect before we launch. And the reality is that if you do good work and you're a good person to work with, that speaks so much more than that you've got a website or that your logo looks awesome or whatever the things are. So I think don't let the fear of having everything figured out just keep you from even starting, because you will figure things out along the way. So that'd be the first thing that I would say. And then just keep going. I think one of the lessons that I learned, I would say that I had pretty early success in the agency, and that didn't necessarily continue. I had clients that I was working with, but I came to a point where I wasn't getting new clients and things were kind of stable, and I had client engagements, come to an end. And I had this moment of like, oh my gosh, this is not as easy as it was in the beginning. Like, what am I doing? What's going on? And I just had to listen to that voice of like, just keep going, just keep persevering. And I'm so grateful that I did, because I've been able to come out on the other side and just have that confidence that you can make it through. And I think, again, business is hard and you have the highs and the lows. And if you can find somewhere in the middle to kind of hang out through all of that, you'll be okay. I think the last thing, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say, listen to your gut. You know
Yeah.
what's right, you know what's wrong, and when things are off and you don't listen to that and you don't act on that, it always comes back. And the business that I've built, the life that I've built, it's all come from listening to what feels right. And I go to bed and I sleep good at night knowing that I'm aligned with what I'm doing and who I'm working with. And I wake up every morning excited to jump back in. And that's an incredible feeling. And I think that comes from just staying true to what's right for you.
What are some future goals or projects that you're excited about for Cordry Creative? Anything in the future of the evolution of your agency?
So much. I think probably one of the biggest things at this point, which is not very fun and exciting, at least to me, is just really streamlining processes and workflows, and the operation side of the business is something that I know is incredibly important. And as a creative and who can justify doing all sorts of other things instead of focusing on that side of it, I'm very excited that I'm at this point of just getting some really good processes and workflows and just some organization on that side in place. And I'm very excited to just continue to build that out to get to a really good spot there. I'm excited to grow the team. I have started working with some contractors and bringing some more people on, and just really incredible people who align with the mission of what we're trying to do at Cordry Creative, of being a partner and being strategic and creative, and are really experts in what they do and can really help to elevate the service that we're providing for our clients. So I'm very excited for that to evolve. And on the project side, I'm very excited for the evolution of the foundation framework. That initiative is just something that's very close to my heart. And from expanding it to serve more people to, maybe creating some sort of self-paced option. I'm not quite sure what that looks like yet. I've got a lot of ideas, but I'm very excited for the evolution of that over the next couple of years.
That's exciting. Yeah, a lot of growth going on, and growing a team is a very important step, which it will definitely require you to have those processes and procedures in place. So, good thing this all happening at the same time. I love that. Well, tell everybody where they can find you if they want to use your services and learn more from you.
Yeah. So my website is cordrycreative.com. You can find me there. You can sign up for the email list there, all the things. And then personally on Instagram, you can connect with me at Sam Cordry.
Awesome. Thank you so much for spending the time with me today, Sam. Lots of great strategies, and I know everybody enjoyed listening to the tips that you had. I appreciate you.
Yes, thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for listening to us today, and we'll see you again next week in the next episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Thank you. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us in the world where creativity and business strategy collide. I am Nata Salvatori, thrilled to have shared this time with you. Remember, every episode is a step closer to mastering the art of being an accidental CEO. So don't miss out. Hit subscribe, drop us a sweet review, and spread the word to your creative tribe. Your next big breakthrough could be just one episode away. Join us next time for more insights, laughs, and actionable tips. Keep pushing boundaries, dreaming big, and embracing the beautiful chaos of entrepreneurship. Here's to make magic happen in your business and beyond.